Okay. I'm Robert Kolish, and this is Visual Fox Pro to mobile using Drupal. And I'm pretty excited about it. This is my first time presenting. And the about me, I've had 37 years working as a data processing manager for Culligan dealerships in Ohio. Acquiring my skills from adult education, lots of trial and error, and the occasional Southwest Fox Geek gatherings. A few plane rides to Arizona years ago. There's lots of side projects for small companies. When I'm not working, it can be found playing Pathfinder on Roll20 or in someone's basement locally. It might seem like I'm going to do this a little backwards, but what I'm going to do first is show the end result of what has been a smashing success at the company where I work. All the employees enjoy it, and they use it every day to do their jobs. Then I'll go back to showing how I determine the content for the website, creating the data to send, and then, of course, how the Drupal site operations can be used to actually display it to the employees and allow them to interact with it. And then, of course, huge benefits in downloading the data that they enter online back into our existing software without changing anything. So I'll get to the live. Okay, so the software is probably kind of small on the screen right now. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger. So when our employees log in, I go, for example, if I go and the person just logs in, if you're an admin, you see a bunch of extra things on the top here, menus that everyone else doesn't normally see. So to show you what an employee would see, this is an employee that's logged in. And this is the actual live site where he did his work today. If I go to the service schedule, then the site will show his work for the day. And for some reason that's not loading, so I'm going to ignore that for now. Just to remind you that the site that our, let's say anyone who wants to do business with our company goes to is actually managed by someone else. I'm not a web designer, so I choose not to delve into that whatsoever. So this is what people see when they want to do business with us. What the employees see, we're back here. So, and it finally decided.
If you turn your camera off, everything will get bigger for the attendees.
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so back into his schedule. Everything that's green is what he did today. And for some reason, he didn't finish this last stop. But throughout the day, because we've sent this to the site, the office can tell what's going on. And same thing goes for if someone is perhaps running a route, and I put in a route number that's active. So when they get their work in the morning, they have a piece of paper that they can run it from, but they also have this. So from here, they're able to call the customer from their phone. They can click on the link here, and it opens up Google Maps to give them directions immediately to wherever they're going. And they can mark it complete, which is what happened here. If there's trouble during the day and they want to send the customer a text, they can do that from over here. This is all from the Drupal site. And this is really super easy to set up, and that's why I did it, because I'm all about simple. For some reason, he didn't finish this last stop. I don't know. Maybe he's not done yet. It's 2:35. He normally works till 3. So, and this map is using the same exact data. It's just, it can just post them to the map where they can just click on it and see what it is. So, and I actually, I don't do the work of the route guys, but they interact with me on a daily basis. So if something doesn't look right, then they're able to actually, you know, fill me in. Also, if I get out of here and show you as an admin that I can see the appointments for our sales department. I don't have any appointments because I don't actually run appointments. So, but as a manager, I can see all the appointments. And then this is what the salespeople will see. They're able to go in and see the last couple of activities that happened and the pertinent information for how to get there, maybe what the customer wants, and to contact them. And then once they've actually sold something, they can submit data and maybe take pictures and upload the pictures so that our installers can see them. So, and since this is my first time doing this, I'm a little shaky about it. But the other thing I wanted to say about the company that I work for that I'm doing this is the owner is adamant about not changing the software. Did not want to go and move everything online. And so now we've done this and there's no cost. There's no monthly maintenance. It's all open source, Drupals. There's absolutely zero cost for it. The only cost is hosting, and that would be simply depending on who you're having host your company site. Possibly could just add it. We use Visual Fox Pro to run everything in the company: the accounts receivable, service, routes, CMS, appointments, demos, sales results, closing percentages, accounts payable, general ledger, payroll, everything. So to do this project, we needed I use WinSCP to send the text file to the site. The web hosting for Drupal, we're using Nexus right now. We did have GoDaddy in the beginning. I'm super happy with Nexus right now, but I'm sure there are many other sites that will do it. Putty, I use that to create a terminal to run Composer. And if you don't know what Composer is actually already installed by Nexus. So I was fortunate in that way. You just get into that terminal and then type a one-line command and it'll install the entire Drupal site. So it might seem like I'm oversimplifying this because for most people, they're used to seeing this. I decided to circumvent the difficulties in this learning curve for Drupal by simply watching videos and not learning too much, because when you try to get too deep into it, you run into trouble, and it seems like it's harder than it really should be. So I'm going to say that the four main things we use the site for: appointments, because when someone calls in at this company, we have to make an on-site water test to see what the person needs. They might have iron in their water, smelly water, they want better drinking water, they want the chemicals taken out, whatever it is. And so appointments is really important to the owner. He wants to make sure they get it. So when someone calls in, we send an email, we send a text, we print it out, and then the text actually then activates and sends the CSV file to the Drupal site that runs every 30 minutes. The feed is running to import that onto the phone so that the person can see his appointments that he has scheduled. And we don't want to miss those. Our delivery routes, the same way. Our guys need to do that every day. They need to get to these places. And if something happens to a driver, he gets stuck in the mud, he has to call for a wrecker, another person can go out and finish the route because we know right where he left off. And we don't even need the paperwork. We can just start at the end and work our way backwards. Also during the day, any of this stuff, if you have you have employees that you're sending out to do work and you don't know where they are during the day, we don't have to use GPS. We can just look on here and see, wow, he just finished that other stop, so he must be headed to the next one. For some reason, we need to know that information, and it happens quite often. Customers will call in and say, well, when's he coming? Well, he's your next stop. So the parts list, that allows them, of course, to look up parts while they're there. And I'm going to go ahead now and let's see, take a look at how simple this was for. So hopefully everyone will be able to see that. But for our appointments, I'm not really doing a whole lot here. I just open up the relative files, and then I'm creating a cursor that I'm going to, here we go. So the most important thing here is just creating the fields that I'm going to use online. And we wanted to have the last two activities, so we have a contact file and went in there, and it's in reverse order, so we're getting most recent contacts, adding them. And then down here, I'm simply copying that cursor to a CSV file. And the most important part that you have to remember when you're doing this with Drupal is these are the fields that I have to actually use in Drupal to map them to the feed online, to the content type that we're going to create online. So this works all the time. It's been working for 4 years. We've never had an issue ever, and we're really excited about the fact that it's working and it's not causing any problems for anyone. I put some of this in the slides so that if someone looked at the video later, they maybe would trigger something and help them to get through issues. The program file that I used to create the cursor, and when we're actually sending it to the site, the thing I ran into is that the Unix time, I had to convert the date time to Unix time to a number, and that was an issue. The daylight savings time where I live is still a thing, so I had to also figure out what time of year it was. I made a little function in there for that. Each record ID must be unique for importing. If you think about it, if you're sending 10 things to the site, you're going to have a choice. Do you want to update the existing one? Do you want to make a new one? Do you want to just overwrite everything? But with this, by having the ID number, it's able to find the one that's on site if it's there, and then decide, oh, we're going to update it or whether we're overwriting it. So copying the cursors to the CSV file and then putting it on the site was actually, this took me a while to make, because I had to look online to try and find the actual command to do this behind the scenes. I know a lot of you probably have other software that you could use for it, but I went ahead and put this on here in case someone decided to use WinSCP. They wouldn't have to look up the parameters for this, because that's actually what my batch file looks like. With some password and IP number corrections. Drupal. If you don't know what that is, this is something that I'm pretty excited that this has been something that came into my life, because it's so similar in many ways to FoxPro. So obviously we want to read this, but I want to let you know that it's here. So if you want to find out about Drupal, it tells you how it's made, how it's secure, what comes with it, and how to test it. And here there are lots of, it got so big, there used to be examples on this page, like a showcase, but instead now you have to actually go to here and then click a link to see more, because there's so many. There's over 1 million sites that run Drupal, government sites. And here's an example of some of the famous ones. So this one here is GE, And then we got Tesla, Fresh, Whole Foods. I mean, there's all kinds, Nokia, McDonald's. So it's reliable, it works, it's free, and it's always evolving. I mentioned installing it and how easy it was. I know I'm going really fast with this, but I just want to show one line of code right here, and that installs the Drupal site using Composer. So it can be really difficult to understand some of the things, but I really don't, I don't delve into it that far. When I get in trouble, I go to my Drupal answers on Stack Exchange. It's been fantastic. Usually the question's already been asked, but for me, I had a lot of questions that weren't, and someone else actually helped me through that, and it was fantastic. So, and get away from my Game of Thrones backdrop there. Perhaps I should ask, is there a question before I continue, or?
No questions so far.
Okay, awesome. Modules, content types, feeds, views, web form. This is it. I mean, and I can't express enough that I really, even after 35 years, 37 years doing Foxborough, but it's been all those years, and I still probably can't explain what object-oriented programming is. And yet I was able to figure this out. So I know all of you could. So if I go to, we already covered these links. And I mentioned security being built into it. That's a usernames, passwords, all that. It's all built into it. I didn't have to create any of that. If you want to add custom modules or create your own custom module, you can. And again, there's no maintenance fees. I keep going back to that, but there's so many of you, I would imagine, have lots and lots of applications that you've created for small companies all over the world. And these small companies might say, hey, I like my software, I want to keep it the way it is. And yet then with a small tweaks, you could just add this and give them the ability to have access to that information on a daily basis on mobile phones or with any browser. The modules that are needed in Drupal, if you just install it, then you have to say, well, what options do you want for your site? In this case, I had to install feeds, tokens and views, views conditional, and web form. And might sound a little alien, but it's kind of like for example, you added Thor, and then it goes in and pulls these other programs from somewhere else. And I'm going to show what that looks like, but also want to mention again that Composer require Drupal web form. That command down there, that is all there is to it, to doing it, to putting it in there. So if I go back to, I'm going to go in here and actually show you. So if I'm in the site and I just installed a module, since I'm signed in as an administrator, I'm able to come in here and actually see all the modules that are installed. Now it may be that I just use Composer to put it on the site, but now I want to activate it. So if I just type feeds, it's going to show me just the ones that are, it filters it out for me. And I can see that feeds is already installed. But if I did it with Composer, it would be here. I just come in here, check it, and then tell it to install it. So, and there's additional settings, sometimes permissions and configuration that can be in here, but it's all, as you can tell, I mean, this is, you just go in here and play with it and you'll find lots of options, but I really didn't have to mess with this to make it do what I wanted it to. And so after this, we've sent a CSV file to the site, then you want to be able to import it. So if I go to, I have to have a content type in order to be able to do that. So if I add a new content type, all these screens are the same. It has an add button. I click on it and I put a name in there. So I'm going to do the appointments. So I'll come back to this, but I can show you just adding a new type is nothing more than coming in, and I could just put a name, and then the description is just to help someone else that might be not know what it's about. You can give it a title, and then save it and manage it. Well, by saving and managing it, that's doing nothing more than I have my appointments that are already finished. So you come in here, and this would be blank. So then I just click Add Field, and I can add fields of whatever name I want. So I had to already know the fields for my appointments, as I had highlighted earlier. There's there's 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 here on the screen, 8, 9. So in the CSV file, the feeds item was not one of the fields. That gets added automatically when you associate a content type with a feed. And it's not something that you'd have to mess with. So after going in here and adding these fields, you just come in here, select a field type. I could just say that I can accept an existing one, but in our case, let's just say that it's going to be just a text field. I can make it a number, reference, text. I just say that it's just text. Give it a label, save and continue, and it adds it. So after the content is here, now these other tabs, manage form display, you can go in and change the length of it. It's not something that I really mess with too much, but if you want it to display differently on the screen, you can come in and change the length of it, configure it in here. I really don't think it's necessary to even do any of this because it works the way it is. So after creating this, now I have this content type, appointments. I have to then go in and associate it with a feed. Well, I don't have a feed yet. So if I go into structure, feed types, and I can add a feed type. Give it a name, and then I can put in a description of what it is. And this is really, to me, this is a no-brainer, but the fetcher, it says download from URL. No, I'm gonna use a file that I've uploaded, and it's gonna be a CSV file. And my appointments content type shows up here, but I could just pick whichever one it's for. In my case, I have routes, parts, service. But if I was gonna do appointments, settings, how often do I want it to import? You can set the time. This all came with it. I didn't actually create any of these forms. Fetcher settings, CSV is listed, but you can use different ones. It's using a comma. And this is what I was talking about earlier, but the ID number. By having an ID number, it's able to actually perform this when you do the import. It can decide whether to replace something that already exists, to update it. And then I save and go to the mappings. So what I'm going to do, since I only have so much time, I'm going to go into edit the feed that already exists. And here's my appointments importing feed. And you can see that I have it under directory, CSV, appointments, and that this one here, it says every hour. This site is my demo site. I pay $10 more a month to Nexus, and they allow me to have a copy of my site so I can test everything, and I can come in here and screw it up, and it won't affect our real site. So I go to mapping, And this is kind of where the magic is, because my ID number is going to be the title. And I go in, when I came in here, all I had to do is just associate the ID number with the title, and then I just create these fields one at a time. All you do is select a target. If I just pick one, and then I can select a source, and I can just make a new source, a blank one, whatever, and that's it. That's all there is to doing that. Very simple. Now here it also has a whole bunch of, it has a bunch of fields. These, I remind you again that I really didn't mess with this too much. So after we've got the mapping done and this runs, you want to make sure that it actually finds and actually imports the data. That's very easy to do. I'm going to do is go back now to my slide, make sure I didn't forget anything. And so on the importing of it is, once again, it might seem silly, but I put the directions like go to content feeds in the slide because I got stuck with that when I initially started using Drupal. I kept going to the wrong place. And so I put it in here just to help someone not have to look that up. The link for this is super easy to figure out. But if I'm going to go to content, I go to feeds. And I have my appointments feed here. I can edit it if I want to. And all it did is it's looking, I had to tell it where I wanted to get that, where that file is at. And then once that runs, it imports the data. So this is what it looks like when I go to it. And I mentioned the link. So if you look up above in the URL, it says feed to. So all I did is I put the link right here so that anyone in the office that has the security, where they're in a role, it's office staff, they'll see these links. And then they can simply click on it and they can import something immediately instead of waiting for it to get imported if they want to. Again, because I am the administrator, I'm seeing tabs here that a normal user does not see. If I was in the other, if I was a normal user, he doesn't see any of that. And if he's on a cell phone, I mean, it's the hamburger menu up top there, and everything automatically just resizes. So even if he's importing using the web form to import data, you know, he's not seeing the same thing that I'm seeing as an administrator. So you can see on here when this last ran, 35 minutes and 39 seconds ago. I didn't do it, it automatically did it. If you want to see what was imported, you click items. It doesn't really show you what you imported. I like to go to content, and then I can just say, well, what content do I want to see? I want to see my appointment content, do the filter, and then it shows me that what came in here. If I click on it, it's not formatted, it doesn't look good, but if I go over to the next step, to me, is how easy it is. The views in Drupal is what's used to display the information. So now we saw information was actually there, was imported, but it didn't look good. No one actually wants to view the data in the default layout. So I want to remind you at this point that I learned how to do all this from videos online. It's amazing what you can learn from that nowadays. It shows you exactly how to create these views. So I'm going to just walk through doing that because it's similar in my mind to a report in FoxPro. So if I go in and go to structure and views, if I want to add a new view, I can just give it a test name. So this, if you use a space, it automatically just puts an underscore in there because this is the actual, like if I was going to put a path to go to it, it would use the what's over here. You can edit it and change it to something else if you want. So I'm going to show content. I'm going to show appointments. I'm going to create a page. And then again, I'm flying through this, but it's you wanted to do it, you could just go back through and I think it would all come clear as you were trying to do it. So then I save and edit. So let's look at the appointments. This is, in my mind, they did this. It was really cool. I created a page for the appointments that our sales representatives are going to see, but I also have a manager's view page because once you've got a view created, you can just duplicate it, or you can add another page which has the same fields by default, so you don't have to recreate the whole thing. So if we get down here and the format of this, I already said it was going to be a table, and then you have settings for this. So I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. So time-wise, I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so all of these fields, you can see a lot of them are hidden. And the reason they're hidden is because I need the information that's in those fields to be available to me as a token, or you could call it like similar to reports. You need that data available so that before you can display it. So I've got some hidden fields, and then the first one that actually shows up and is visible is the appointment date. So if I go back to settings, these are all hidden. If I come down here, and so the appointment date is where it all starts. And you can see that the appointment date is creating a column, and then I'm telling it here with this separator so that I know that I don't want to create another column. I want this to be underneath it, so I'm going to align this next field underneath the appointment date. The address is going to be under the name, and that's how they do this. Another way to show you this is if I go down here to the preview, there's nothing there. The reason there's nothing there is because I don't have any appointments. Luckily, I'm the admin, and I can see all of them. So I go down to the bottom, and I can see this preview. So I'm able to see what it looks like real time. Like immediately, I can see whether it's going to be what I want it to be. So I would note that the appointment time, the date and time is here. I never really bothered to change it. The users like it. They're able to read it, so I left it alone. Where this says submit data is actually the title field. And they just do a real neat trick here. So if I go to the title field and I click on it, so I want to rewrite the results of the title field. I'm just going to override the output of this field. I'm going to have it say submit data, which you've seen, and I'm going to output this as a link, and then I'm just going to send it to this web form that I created, and I'm going to send the information in these tokens. And if you're in here and you don't know what the tokens are that are available, you can go in here to the replacement patterns and see what they are. Because I had those hidden fields that are in there, this information is now available to that link. Even though it's only the second field on the screen, it still has all of this data available for me to send in the URL, which is exactly what I wanted, so that that the salesperson could just hit submit data. They hit submit data, and then it opens up a form that is pre-populated with the data that we've imported from our software. That's not changed. All we did is send it up to the site, import it, and then he can just this confirms who it is. He can say, oh, this is what happened. Oh, I rented something, and then this form it opens up. I can put in an install date, say when it's going to be done, check a couple of things if I want to. I can say what equipment it was, and also I can then upload pictures from my cell phone that I'm doing this from, or the tablet. And the reason that's effective for us is because we're installing equipment in people's homes, and the installers like to know what they're getting into before they get there. So if I go back and I go to appointments, and I think this guy might have written something sometime. So here we have something that he did, and he has a picture of the plumbing and the mess in the basement, and the installer can now know what kind of crazy stuff he's going to have to get and deal with when he gets there. So it's very effective at communicating to the employees. Now, this is created using a web form. And web forms are, to me, the most exciting part about Drupal, because you can actually have them input data, and then once that data is inputted, we can then bring it down into our software without having to re-input all that information. So if I go down and go to, for example, let's go to the easy one, which is the sales appointments. And creating a web form is, again, it's really nothing but clicking on boxes and making choices. So if I want to add something, I can add a checkbox, a text area. I can make it a message that comes up. It's a warning message. So if I want to add a checkbox, let's just add a text field. So this is all like menu driven. I don't have to do any coding to make this happen. However, once you get to know what you're doing, the source code's right here, and it's written in Twig. So all I have to do, and see, he has video links. There's all kinds of video links in here. It's amazing. All you have to do, if you want to change what something says, I can come in here and simply just change the title and then save it, and it takes effect immediately to all the users as soon as they refresh their screen. So this entire form is right here. That's it. So it's not a big one, but it does what it is supposed to do. And again, I should ask again before I too carried away, any questions?
Yes, there were several. Does importing the CSV file overwrite the existing data, or does your backend database grow each time you import new data?
Back when we were in here and we were deciding what we were going to do with the feed, I'm sorry, if I go to in the structure of it, when you're creating the feed, you have to decide what it's supposed to do when it encounters something that already exists. So in mine, I'm saying if you find one that already is there with the same ID number, I want it to just update it. And then previously imported items, I can say, well, I want to keep it. Well, how long do you want to keep it? I want to keep it for 1 month. I want to keep it for a year. Okay, so that's pretty, I mean, it's very, this is what it does. I mean, there's no more to it, actually. If it finds one, it'll do what I've told it here, and if not, it'll just add a new one. Okay.
Okay. Next question. How often does the live site pull in a feed? Can it be on demand also?
Well, the amount of time of when it does it, I'm sorry, there it is. Okay, so the I have 30 minutes on our live site for the appointments. This one here, for some reason I have it in an hour, but these are what the options are on the screen. However, if you got to know there's something called cron that is on the site, and you can set that to do settings other than what's listed here. I really like the fact that I didn't have to program any of this. All I did is hit drop downs and select something, and it worked.
Okay. We got more.
Okay.
Can website visitors update data to send back to the server? Is this site public to the internet?
Okay. When you create a form, when you create a web form, you are and you have, when you have a link to it, you say who's allowed to actually see it. So if I go back in here, pretty sure. So under settings, I didn't want to get too deep into this stuff because it'll, it's just overwhelming. But I had to go search for it and like say, well, so you can actually say that only that anonymous cannot have access to it. And I'm probably in the wrong spot, but all of that is configurable, and it's all whether it's a view, whether it's a web form, all of them are the same way. And my site is set up so that there's only 2 things that someone can do if they're not logged in. The rest of it, they can't get to it because they're not logged in. And I did all of it from the graphical user this interface. I didn't actually have to write any code to make that happen.
Okay. Where is the code you write in this hosted?
Code that I write in this. Well, I didn't have to write any code to make
True.
this.
I guess then the question is where is all the information hosted?
Oh, did you say hosted?
Hosted. The question was where is the code you write in this hosted? Was the question.
So if you if you didn't have a Drupal site and you had a website of your own, I would just go to whoever's hosting the site that you have, and then tell them, that you wanted to have a Drupal site, and usually they already have the configuration for it set up. But literally, it's just another site in the same. It doesn't matter really, as long as you have access to an SQL, a MySQL database. You could actually put a Drupal site anywhere.
Okay, we had one more, which is a follow-up about sending how often things get pulled in and so forth, I think, which is, but if you update the back-end data and the user has made changes, how do you deal with conflicts?
Okay. The users aren't making changes to any of the data. I'm providing them the data that's on their paperwork when they leave the office. They see what we have in there. And then at that point, they're not actually going to be changing anything. So as an example, if I go to the live site and this user, he clicked and he's on his phone and he sees the information here, and it looks a little funny because it's the browser and not a cell phone. So I'll just stretch it out a little bit. On his phone, all these numbers are actually, they show up, but he can't change that information. He can just go in and enter information. There's parts in here he can look up underneath, but he's entering a lot of information, which is actually in my next couple of slides, but he's only adding information. He's not changing anything. So to answer the question, I don't ever have conflicts because they're not doing anything to the data that's going to come back to the office and hurt our software locally.
Okay, and that was all the questions.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this is where I want it to be anyways. Just to make sure I cover it before I run out of time, I'll go ahead and okay. In the views, I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, but back in the views, which is similar to the reports, I didn't mention the part about editing the title and the path. All of that is accessible through URLs. So as long as you're logged in, you could just go to it. But the menus that are created on there all use URLs, and so the path for any form or view that you create is simply put in it when you create it. I talked about hidden fields, links, the admin page, web forms. So what we were just talking about, overwriting the data, I send the data to the site, they see it, and then users enter data via the web form, and if you so choose, you could have them change something. And then when it gets downloaded, we do it the next day. We just, a user in the office, when she's going to input the data the service people turned in with their paperwork at the end of the night, next morning she pulls it up on the screen, hits the download button, and everything's there. So but they enter it through the web form, it submit the data, and when they submit it, it can be sent by email, a copy can go to the customer, which it does automatically. You can set all that up. You can text from web form. We can resend it and make it a PDF. All this is all very easy. Once created, the source code's twig, I mentioned that. Also, if something happens to one of my, if I don't have a backup to a FoxPro form, I'm in trouble. But with a web form, if you have just that text, that's all you need. You just go into a blank web form and you dump that text in there, and boom, it works again. I didn't show you a couple of these things, but I will go ahead and go back to that. Okay, downloading the web data locally. I think most of you are going to think this is like a no-brainer, but I'm going to just real quick go through what I'm doing because it works. It's fantastic. So if I go back to FoxPro, let's see, it's not that one. So the biggest, the most complicated web form that I made is for our service people. And all I do is use the, and pardon the if you see the coding that's obviously not professional, that's that's me. So I've had to deal with the date time issue, and I've just programmed it in here. So I'm selecting, there's two, with web form, there's two tables that have to be accessed and the data has to be retrieved from. It's web form submissions and web form submission data. So, and I'm getting both of them. And then once I get them, I simply go down. I'm looking for the ones that have that the ID of the web form is the service form. Once I have that, I match up the main record with the sub-records that are in the web form submission data file. And so then once I've done that, I'm able to run, and this is a pretty long case statement down here, but all I do is I go through and I have a file that I I go through and I take all that data and I just put it in the correct place. So there's a lot of fields, but it works and it does exactly what we want it to. Now I'm importing into my existing, when she opens the form to close out service, it now has the data that was entered online. And I'm going to show you there's a lot of data. And this has been one of the most exciting things for us because it alleviates mistakes. If our service guy goes in and he puts in water test results, and he goes in and he says, oh, I reset the timer and I did the meter and I cleaned the adductor and maybe I did something else, whatever it is. And so then he's able to do some billing or not. And all this is on the web. I created all this on the web form using the graphical user interface. And it's all so similar to Fox Pro that I was able to do this very rapidly. But he knows what he's charging the customer, and all these details are all probably very similar to anyone doing like plumbing, heating, air conditioning. But he serviced the unit. He can use his microphone to put whatever happened, do some more check boxes. Now, what's really exciting is all these fields come down to that program I just showed you with that really long case statement, and then it concatenates all these labels that I've put on these check boxes so that we can say what the guy did without the person in the office trying to read the hieroglyphics that the guy typed. He might have written what happened, but we can't understand his writing. So now it just uses the data from online, creates this text of what the guy did, and it's way faster, and we're finding out that everyone likes it. And because of COVID, of course, we had this signature. This was all part of web form as well. So just open this, click on that, open it up on your mobile phone, have them sign it. If they don't want to touch the phone, you could just type their name down here. I mean, we tried to deal with COVID as best we could, but and again, we've been doing this for years, and it's been doing everything that we want. See, any questions?
Yeah. Going back to the data stuff, the question was, so where are the user changes saved?
Where are the user changes seen?
You said your people can fill in some data as they do the work. Where's that data saved?
Oh, okay. So I'm just going to, there's the two tables, the web form, there's two tables, and they're saved in the SQL database that runs Drupal, because Drupal is literally ran from a database. Everything that's on the screen is ran from a database, and that and I didn't get. I think I've got one line of CSS that I put in here, and that's it. So I did make a custom module for myself so that I could do. Be able to update their prices. So if they go into, who's asking about where is it saved at? So if he goes in and he does this, and this data that is in this web form that all of these people have inputted, it's just in it's in the SQL tables online, and all of this is done online. The whole thing is we're not sending mounds of data back and forth on the cell phone or the tablet when they're accessing it, and it still works really quick. I'm not sure if I answered the question well enough.
Well, I think if not, then I'm going to suggest that the person with that question come to your Q&A after this so you can have a back and forth, and that'll be easier. Had a couple more questions.
Okay.
What kind of backups are you running on the website to back up the source code, with source code in quotes, your settings and so forth? I assume that means. Okay.
There's two. One is for the database that gets backed up separately from I mean, I have two backups, one for the site and one specifically for the database. And then I also have the site that you're looking at now is my demo or test site where I program. And so if something happens to the main one, theoretically, I could just use this demo site. They could just copy that over to the other directory and then restore the backup, and we should be back up and running. In 4 years, I've never had a single issue, so I really haven't tried it. I know that's like bad form, but another thing is this data is really, we don't care, because our guys are doing their job and they have what they need, and then they're giving us additional information on a daily basis that we can input into our existing software locally. So if something happens to this site, it's not going to like put us out of business or anything.
Okay.
So.
And there was one more. What are the key plugins required for Drupal to make this happen?
Well, I wouldn't know what's required because I do that command in Composer, and then I go to the site and log in. Okay. All these menus up here, like for example, people, just go in and you can just start adding users, and the security for this is already built into it so that you could have them, you know, roles, permissions, all this can all be set, which I've set up so that we have staff, we have admin. I mean, this is admin menu. So if I wasn't an admin, I'm not gonna see that menu like this guy. He doesn't see any of that. Also, you notice that no one actually asked the question, but Windows forces updates on us all the time, and I can't turn it off. At least I never figured out how to. We're happy with our Windows versions the way they are, like Windows 10. In our business, we were happy with what we had, and we didn't really want this constant aggravation of it being updated. Can't turn it off. Well, in Drupal, it doesn't automatically update. The admin has to actually go in and run Composer to update it. You just run Composer's update, and it just does it. However, I don't really do it that often because I don't need to. But the admin sees this notice, the security notice up here, and the other person, the regular user, he does not see that, that part's nice, but it's constantly reminds me I can't get rid of this. It just shows up on every screen no matter what I do. It tells me that there's an update available. So.
Okay. There are a couple more questions, but I think I'm going to suggest that people come to your Q&A so that you can finish up. Okay.
We already went through this summary. I'm just really excited that there's even one question. And hopefully you learned today that that if you have a small company somewhere, I don't care if it's a fire department or anyone that has software that they are happy with, they don't want to change it, but they want to be able to access the data from their phone or whatever. You have lots of flexibility with this particular solution. And I can tell you that all the employees love what we're using, and it's working great for everyone, and it was very beneficial. The only cost, of course, is your initial time to create it, and I'm hoping that what I've shown you shows that it's pretty simple. And there's a lot of videos out there on YouTube that also make it very easy to learn how to do this. So I don't have a company. If you want to contact me, there's my email, and thank you.